Item C, adopt resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a rehabilitation contract with Lane Christensen Incorporated for well number 17 rehabilitation project in the amount of $35,796 and approving a construction budget in the amount of $41,500.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Council. We're going to have 4 slides. I'm going to talk about well 17. First is going to be location. The next is going to be the history, and then the video inspection, and then recommendations. So the first slide. Okay. Well, let me just proceed. Well 17 is located at the Corporation Yard. The Corporation Yard, as all of you know, is located on Huntington and San Felipe. Well 17 is on the more San Felipe side of the Corporation Yard. It discharges into 2 clear wells, which are basically 2 small swimming pool size units, and that clean water is then distributed to the system. There's disinfection going on, obviously. And what we noticed in February is the well normally produced 230 gallons a minute, and then it suddenly declined to 170 gallons per minute, which meant that there was some problem. Plus, there was an additional amount of sand being produced from that well. So we took the well down, and you may ask yourself, well, why did they do it so suddenly? Well, the sand can be abrasive. It can damage the impellers and the insides of the pumps, so it's better to save that pump. Pump actually looks good, at least in our initial inspection. The motor, as the language is, megged well, which meant that there was all the connections inside were appropriate. The next is the history. The well was put in 1994. We had a rehab in the year 2000, and now we have this problem that I just discussed about the well decreasing in value. And so I brought a model that maybe you've seen before. Scott Munz and Mark Reinhardt brought it here one time. And it's going to kind of help us hopefully have a mutual understanding of the vocabulary that is necessary to understand the next slide and actually the whole agenda report. So again, it's a model, and I'm going to have a hard time with the microphone and the model, so forgive me about that. Let's start with the most important point. This is called the well casing. It's a representative sample of the well casing. It goes down 500 feet in well 17, and the actual dimensions are about 30 inches. Probably the thickness is close to a ½ inch of this piece here that's steel. And so it's dug down and then gone down all the way through different aquifers, different levels of aquifer in our basin. And the screen here is a screen like on a screen door, but obviously the screen is different in reality, but it's still a representation of what goes on. So we have the casing that goes down into the ground. Then we have areas where there's screens where the water can come in and be pumped. And well 17, there's at least 3 levels of screens, not looking like this, but much bigger, going at 3 different levels because of the test situations show that those are good areas for water. So this is called the casing. And the next area, excuse me, I don't want to hit any of these wonderful people on each of my side. The next is the column pipe and the pump itself. And this represents the column pipe. So we're thinking about a pipe that's maybe, in sections of 20 feet or so, about 500 feet. And then we're thinking about a 6-foot pump down the bottom. And even though it's a screen, it represents the pump. And the pump actually goes backwards with a motor down the bottom. And then the individual centrifugal pumps based up one on top of each other in order to get enough output to rise up 450 feet. Centrifugal pumps sound real fancy, but they're the most common pump. There's some pumps, they're your water pumps that we talked about this morning, earlier today. So they're very, very common pumps. And I think that, in a way, is covering kind of the different language that I'll use. So what happened in February 2007 is that this was removed, 2009, that this was removed, this whole section of column pipes. The column pipes are placed for reuse. The pump is ready to be inspected along with the motor again. And then we sent a camera down 500 feet inside the casing itself. It actually has little springy things on the outside so that the unit itself, the camera can stay in the middle. And so it goes down all the way through, and even through where we reach water, and then it can actually tilt, and we could see how the screen looks at different levels in the aquifer. And we keep going down till 500 feet till we hit the bottom, then we pull it up. And then the value of that is the initial inspection showed that there was no obvious damage to the screens, which is what we suspected would be a large problem. There is probably biofouling and some other things that are closing up some of the screen holes, so to speak. And then the column pipe itself the casing pipe itself has corrosion on the outside. Okay, so this is what we observed. What we're asking tonight is the work involved in actually rehabilitating this particular unit, which would be scrubbing, which would be chemical means, and mechanical means to try to get this crud, using a scientific term, off of the sides of the casing, and also to see if we can clean it off, more importantly, off the screens. So you want to see the condition. We want to clean everything up with chemicals. There's a whole combination of chemicals. It's not really important to go through there. And some sort of agitation, like a washing machine. It has to bounce up and down to clear out the materials with the chemicals. One of the chemicals of detergents is phosphates. That's one of the chemicals, for example, that's used. There's all sorts of chemicals that are used. And after that, to do an inspection of the well casing for its 500 feet, and then from there make a real determination, because the outside corrosion and tuberculosis-like matter is clouding what the real condition of the pipes are and what the real conditions of the screens are. And after they're clean, then we can make a real determination by videoing again what our next steps need to be. And also the pump can go out to see if it needs to be rehabbed. And so the recommendation is obviously to go forth with the lowest responsive bidder, which was Lane Christensen, for $41,500.
Any questions of staff?
Through the chair.
Councilmember Medina?
The staff was kind enough to humor me today. I went down to better educate myself to the well. I saw the video which Robert spoke of as far as watching it being televised and to see the various matter and the screens and what have you. It was extremely something that I had not been able to visualize until seeing it there. I also was able to see the sample that came out of the raw, and it was, I'm sorry it's not here, but it's, yeah, to use a technical term. So it actually is pretty bad, and again, it is the well is now offline and had to be shut down. So in essence, we are missing the opportunity to have a operational well 17, which again, the turnaround time to get to this point has greatly improved from other times when we have to take a well down and then try to get it back online. One thing, not to detract from this, but I had brought up before as far as the in various levels of the professional services, the construction services, there's dollar amounts that are capped as to what staff can do before they have to go out for formal bids. And I had brought up that this dollar amount, for example, for for construction services, anything over 5,000 has to have a formal bid. Well, this goes back when I worked here in the 90s, I believe, or maybe even further back, that those dollar amounts haven't been raised. And I think at times it makes it arduous and also delays the process for us to bring some of these projects forward. Maybe not in this particular case, but in general. So I want to bring that up again, as I still think it's a very worthwhile energy for the staff to revisit that and modify the ordinance to bring up current dollar amounts so we don't, so we can streamline things faster through the process on that. But anyway, I wanted to thank staff for the explanation and their visual ability for me to see it firsthand and help me better understand it. So, thank you.
very much.
To the chair, such is life with water wells, though. I mean, you are going to run into maintenance issues. You are
Right.
going to run, and so the key is here is having the ability to see what the problem is and tackling the problem, without guessing.
Oh,
I guess,
exactly right.
Yeah.
And Clara's brought a lot of experience to Public Works, and we're on a very much more proactive methodology. And it's interesting that some of the things that she's come across is about the timeline that we need to do some some preventative measures before we end up with something stopping. And for example, we have a well rehab at every 5 years, which is about an average industrial standard. And so we'll proactively go after this. What's interesting is that I don't know if I'm speaking too much or not, but we had a rehab in 2000 and a failure in 2009. If we would have done a preventative rehab in 2005, we wouldn't have lost 18% of our production water supply by losing that well.
Would it be too positive to think that that through this maintenance that we possibly can get a better return over the 210 gallons per minute?
No, I can't make that guarantee. What I could probably make sure is that the conditions of redeveloped wells will probably be better engineered, better installed, using better materials. The preventative measures are going on now, the preventative maintenance, but the rehab on a predictive, proactive basis is not going on. So the only thing I could really predict is that the wells will last longer and we'll get more value out of them. It's much less expensive to rehab a well than to install a new well if it's completely destroyed, just as if it's easier to change your oil than to work on a destroyed motor,
So my last comment. So
Yes,
we're
sir.
we're on schedule on all our wells for a minimum 5-year
That's,
maintenance program.
Clara is proposing that, yes.
Okay.
And yeah, she could talk in more depth about it. I have it in my head, and I have a piece of paper here, but
Thank you.
Any further council questions or action from council?
Go ahead and introduce the resolution.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Medina.
Aye.
Councilmember Ibera.
Aye.
Councilmember O'Connell. Aye. Mayor Frantella.
Aye.